You walk like jazz.
I dig it. I love the album. I'm you start out with Fried, you work your way through. It's kind of an emotional kind of pendulum of things going on. So I'm looking forward to getting into it. So thank you, David, for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So before we get into the album, the one thing that we interviewed before and I haven't probed into a lot, how does being a drummer lend to your approach to the microphone as a singer and the way that you take the stage? How do those two play with each other?
Well, I learned how to sing at the drums. So when I was 11, I started playing the drums. When I was 14, I was on stage making money playing the drums. And then when I was 17, I got in a van and I was riding to Colorado with them. We stopped and got me a union card, and the guy said, "Hey, do you sing?" And I said, "No." He said, "Oh, too bad. I could pay you more money." And he said, "You could just sing at the drums." And so I was with him for a year or so, and I sang for the drums like I've had a mic, but I didn't have a mic. And I started to sing parts and stuff. And then before I got to Kansas City when I was 19, I was a singer. I was a singing drummer. So it's never been anything but second nature to sing at the drum. So I don't really even think about one or the other, I guess. Certain things take more, they're more adventurous, like the song on this album, The Sins of a Father. I mean, that's just me.
Yeah.
It's just drums and vocals. And so that's a little hairier, but it's okay.
And that's a deep tune. That's what I was going to ask you about. What was kind of the catalyst for that tune? I mean, because you go from everybody's hooting and hollering about frying food up, and then we segue into this tune. So,
Kansas City, and there's lots of Catholics here. So, sins of the Father, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. And the more you've sinned, the bigger the blessing, because you need it, And so, I grew up. I grew up Presbyterian, but all my friends in high school were Catholic, and we would drive over to the Catholic school and eat lunch because one of my friends' mothers was a cook over there, and they had the best cinnamon rolls ever. And so we'd go eat cinnamon rolls, and we'd go back to the public high school. And then on Saturday, we'd all go over to confession, and I'd sit in the car, and they'd go in and get blessed, and, like that. So I'm kind of Catholic adjacent, because they say the two largest religions are Catholic and non-practicing Catholic. So.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how it doles out. And I grew up technically being the son of an immigrant grandparents. There was Catholicism, but it wasn't practiced, but it was always implicit. It was always kind of a part of the backbone. So, yeah.
Right, and there's something about, just the terms, just sins of the Father passed down to the Son. I mean, I'm telling you, and that's a pretty heady song. It was one of those songs that was given to me by Bob Benish, who has a biscotti company. He makes biscotti. He's got a kitchen in his house where he does that.
Yeah.
And he's been doing that for years. And so he's a real cool character. And it's a couple of these songs are from Bob. The one called "By My Baby's Side" is also Bob's tune. And so I get them, and then I put my version to them.
Yeah.
But they came to me as lyrics, like Dan Jaffe. He's a poet, and the song Katrina comes from. We were talking about making a podcast.
Yeah,
and he's was a 35-year professor emeritus at Kansas City University, which is now UMKC. So he left work a long time ago, and so he said, "Podcast. What's a podcast?" And I said, I told him about it. He goes, "Well, why would anybody do that? That's stupid." And I said, "Well, people do it." And then when Katrina came along, he got this idea. he was like, well, it just came to him like a flash. Here's this song about Katrina,
Yeah.
and it's basically there's one verse in there that says she's going to climb that broken ladder. And you remember maybe if you watched it on TV, if you watched Katrina on TV, you saw the helicopter come over the house with a ladder
Uh-huh.
that comes down, and people sitting on the roof grabbing that ladder and getting on the helicopter that way,
Yeah.
which is like one of the scariest things on earth,
Uh-huh.
other than being in Katrina, which is
Yeah.
unimaginably scary,
Yeah.
and such a tragedy. But we got a song out of it,
Yeah.
and it was just on a piece of paper, and he called the podcast, which never happened, "Hanging Out in Jazz America," and then he said
Wow.
it was part one. So at the end of every time I sing that song, at the end I go, "Hanging Out in Jazz America, part one."
That's such a great title, though. What a great title. That just brings it all home.
Well, that's do this every day, and we'll just call it "Hanging Out in Jazz America Part One, Two,
That's
Three,
exactly.
967."
Yeah.
5,402.
Yeah. The one thing about covering tunes is that there's this wonderful regenerative nature of reimagining music and jazz. And I think it builds it's a testament to the strength of this community. So when you reimagine a tune, how much do you belabor over that? How much do you think about your spin and what you're doing to add to the original tune that was made?
That's a really good question, Joe. I work a lot with Greg Richter, the pianist,
Hmm.
and he's very inventive. I have two pianist friends that Tim Whitmer. I'm one year younger than him.
Yeah.
Same day. Greg Richter. I'm 1 day different. Same year.
Wow.
So I'm 1 day older than Greg, and so we have this kind of thing that we do, and like with Mark Winkler, who like jazz is probably my best known song, really, because it's gotten more play on radio and so on than any other song. But when I received that song from Mark, it was like a demo, that I could listen to plus a chord chart. And when Greg looked at it, he says, it's some pretty good chords, but I think I can fix it. So we call it fixing it. I used to say this little story on stage that like we got the song and there were just a few things wrong with it, And so Mark, I'm kind of a procrastinator too. So Mark would call me and then he'd say, "Have you listened to those demos yet?" And I said, "I'm getting to it." And then I said, "Mark," finally I said, "Oh, Mark, yeah, we like it. I'm going to record it, but there's a few things that are not quite right." He said, "Well, what?" I said, "It's good, but the chord changes had to be fixed." So, "Oh, that's okay. If you can make a few changes." I said, "The melody, we changed it a little bit." He said, and then I said, we changed the tempo a little bit. So the rhythm, we changed that a little bit, and I said, "Man, we kind of, everything, the harmony changed on a couple of chords and the lyric." And he's like, "What the? No, you ruined my song." But he was in the room when I recorded this because he's got two songs from this particular night of the War Within that are also on YouTube. One called "An Afternoon in Harlem," with the trio that I recorded with in Hollywood, and his other song called we do it as a duet called "Here's to Jazz."
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to do a Mark Winkler album,
Yeah.
and just do all his tunes and screw them up like I do, and see if he'll
He's a good
accept
sport.
them. Right.
Yeah. He's definitely a good
Anyway.
sport.
He has. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So this is your first album in a long time. So what
10
was
years.
yeah. So what was kind of the why did it take a decade, and kind of what was the real impulsion to do this live?
You know, it's following Taylor Swift. Um, you know, she got in this big thing, and she was she was adamant that Spotify was the end of music as we know it.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, it's just so different now than it was 10 years ago. But
Yeah.
in 2015, I did an album live at Pilgrim Chapel with Joe Cartwright, the two of us, and the pianist Joe Cartwright,
Yeah.
and so that was it. I just pulled the plug there, and I that was on Joe's label, Lafayette Music, and so it kind of it was out there in internet space and so on like that. But I pulled mine off of the distributorship, my old albums, and I'm really happy that I did, because when she started hanging out with Travis Kelsey, and then she's made, I just kept in touch with her in my own way because I don't really know anything about her music. I mean, very very little about her music, but I do know how she does business, and I can see that she's very 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 successful, and
Yes.
so one of the things she did is she went back and recorded songs that she did long ago. So that's what this is basically. This album. The reason that I had a 10-year hiatus from the record business is because I didn't like what was happening, and it's still kind of hard for me to swallow, because like getting a penny for an album,
Yep.
uh, or a half a penny, or some other odd form of money or no money. I used to be able to just say, "Hey Joe, you got $10? Boom."
Uh-huh.
And then you say, "Give me two more of those." "Oh, you just give me $30." "Oh, give me 25. I'm fine." I
Yeah.
mean, that's how I used to do business because my first album came out November 30th of 1984, and then we had LPs. We didn't think CDs were going to do anything,
Yeah.
so we just made LPs back then. But we sold a lot of them, and we did it just like that, right off the stage at City Light, where I used to play years ago. 7 years I played there. Yeah.
I have that on LP. I found it in a where did I find that? I think it was at Seventh Heaven, and I still hold on to it. I love it. It's wonderful. It's yeah, yeah. Old school Kansas City. So the thing that strikes me about this album is that living in America right now, there's a lot of weird, strange things going on. There's a lot of things that
Where?
most what's that?
Where?
Everywhere. We just got to open our eyes. But your album, it's like it's fit for this time. The War Within, the way the art is on it, the way that you undulate between the kind of whimsical with the Fried and then Armistice and Katrina, and you're kind of going through this pendulum of emotions that I think we all are feeling in America today. Was there any part of you that was thinking about orchestrating this set list, the artistic vision of this, that was going to be emblematic of America in 2026 or 25?
I think that I think that my music, you know, yeah, I felt that these songs reflected the times in a good way.
Yeah.
And my partner Valerie Jackson, she said, she was listening to the songs after we had made the recording, and she said, I'm going to write a couple of things down that I think should be, a title, and she really wanted it to be called The War Within,
Hmm.
you know, so I looked at the titles and I said, The War Within, absolutely, and she said, Oh, I'm so glad you picked that because that's absolutely what I thought these songs talked about, and then when after we had, put in the order for the discs and decided on the name, then the president called what he was doing in Minneapolis and L.A. It's The War Within.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, I'm gonna have to sue him,
Yeah. Right.
and but that wouldn't work probably.
No, it wouldn't be good.
But yeah, I'm a I'm a patriotic guy in my own way.
Yeah,
I mean, I believe in the United States of America, and I'm troubled right now,
yeah,
and I try to, so I have to turn off stuff because I
yeah,
can't, and it's like I know that it's going to be fine because we're a heck of a nation,
yeah, yep. We certainly are.
Yeah.
S- So let me ask you this. After 10 years, was there something about doing this in front of a crowd, about coming back with a live album? Was that a part of the architecture of coming back?
You know, my best laid plans are serendipitous.
Yeah,
I mean, I was out in Orange, New Jersey, where Paul Wycliffe lives, who produced this album, really. And he produced it from his basement studio in Orange, New Jersey, which is one of the most well-equipped basement studios you've ever seen in your life. It was a 9-foot piano, a B3 organ, all of his equipment that he used to make Mariah Carey album and all the hundreds of records that he made that are gold records and so on. But he's just, moved about 20 minutes out of New York City and took all his stuff with him. And I made a Grammy-nominated album with Mike Melvoin with Paul, and I also made an album called Like Jazz with Paul, and his wife is Rosanna Vitro, who's one of the great jazz singers
yeah,
and a Grammy-nominated singer, and so going to their house is wonderful. And he lives next door to John Lee, who was a record producer and a bass player that played with Dizzy for a long time. So their little neighborhood is cool. And I was in Orange, and Mark Winkler, my buddy, calls me and says, "I've got this song called Here's to Jazz, and it's out on my record right now. And are you close to a studio?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Paul's around the corner." He said, "Oh, that's great." He said, "I'll send Paul the stems for the recording, and I'll send you a lyric sheet the track, and go down to the studio and then just tell Paul to bill me." And so we did that, and then Mark said, "Well, come out to Hollywood, and I need a video of this song." He says, "There's a place called Kulak's Woodshed, 2 blocks from my house." It's literally 2 blocks from his house, and so I booked a gig there, and I called a couple of friends, and we went over there, and we made this recording. And I mean, the preface was I spent an hour with Stuart Elster, the pianist. He had 5 rehearsals that day. He said, "I can fit you in from 2 to 3." I showed up at, at 1:55. He said, "Can you drive around the block a few times or go down to the grocery store?" But you got to be here at 2 because I don't have much time. And then the bass player, Lester Hughes, he was Gene Harris's bass player for quite a while.
yeah,
And so there's an album called Funky Genes, Genes. Man, that is the swingingest album of all time. I mean, I love that blues jazz mix,
yeah,
and Gene Harris epitomizes that,
yeah,
and, like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
Jimmy and
See,
Gigi Cheatham and so on.
yeah. The thing, being such an acclaimed, established monolith in this Kansas City scene, when you go to a place like LA, what is it like when you travel and you go to these other cities and they know you're from Kansas City? What kind of extra buzz does that create?
Um, it's I lived in LA for about 10 years,
Yeah,
and so people never grow old in Los Angeles in show business,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So so it's like, "Hey, Dave, how you doing? You still living in the same place? Got the same number?" "No, I've been in Kansas City." When did you move there?" 25 years ago. you know. So, I know people. I've played the first time I played in New York City. We played for 2 weeks in a place on the Upper East Side called Hanratty's,
Yeah.
and we played 6 nights a week, had a night off in the middle, and that's unheard of for a
Yeah.
bar band from Kansas City.
Right.
Fly to New York. I took my drums, the sound system, everything on the plane, and paid the freight. you know,
Yeah.
and went to this place in taxi cabs out of the airport. I mean, it was crazy. We didn't know what the hell we were doing, but we did it. And it was great. It was great fun. Benny Goodman came and heard us play.
Wow.
So I was playing with Aladdin, and he said, this Dave, this older white guy over there. He said he likes my playing. Go and talk to him. I walked over. He said, "Hi, I'm Benny Goodman. And that's my wife. Please apologize to that great saxophonist. We got to get in a cab and go downtown to the theater, and we can't hear your second set." But this it's serendipitous, really. Because it's my life, Joe, is jazz.
Yeah.
My life is improvisational.
Yeah.
And we put a little quote up when I put my playlist for radio out, 5 days a week, and there's a quote from Herbie Hancock. It says, "I practice, life is my practice."
Yeah.
So it's not like you can escape from this improvisational attitude.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do, you're probably not going to play jazz anymore because it's too difficult
Hmm.
and it doesn't pay enough.
Right.
If you don't have that improvisational thing, like you interview, how many jazz musicians have you interviewed? I don't want to interview you, but
Oh no. Oh,
one
I'm
question.
probably up to around 1,500 something. Easy. If
1,500.
not 1,500, 2,000.
1,500. Okay, so tell me one of them that didn't have a good sense of humor.
Oh, there wasn't one. No, there's not. And I've learned improv from you guys. Like, I've learned looking at life like a canvas. The way a bird darts in front of me will never happen again. And there is a serendipity, like you said. There's this temporal wonder of being on this planet and just being mystified by gravity and all these crazy creatures and scenarios that happen every day. Like the fact that we're held together by this invisible glue and things don't go into chaos is a part of the backbone and beauty of jazz. It's capturing that magic in a bottle.
Exactly, exactly. Because if you're playing and you miss a note, and you start thinking about it, that you missed a note, think how much you missed.
Yeah.
You missed a big old portion of the tune,
Yeah.
you know. But if you just grab a hold of something and bring it back into focus, you're right back in the stream of this lovely thing, this
Yeah.
rocking chair of, ooh, here we go.
Uh-huh. That's it.
And so when I play the drums and sing, I like to, I love to sing, and I love to be up in front of a big band singing or whatever like that. I like all of it, but man, there's something that's undeniable about being the drummer and the singer
Yeah.
because I got it all. I got it all going on, except the chord changes,
Right.
and I'm just riding those anyway. So okay, you know, it's. I mean, you see how much fun it is
Oh yeah.
by being
Absolutely.
jazz adjacent.
Yeah. Well, some Latin legend told me years ago when Miles Davis made a band, when he constructed the band, the drummer was the first person he picked. It was the backbone to everything that he did. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Tony Williams was 17 and they played at Lincoln Center,
Yeah.
and Ron Carter was 26. And I heard Ron in a master class say, and Miles walked in the dressing room before the show and he said, "It's a benefit." And Tony Williams says, "What does that mean, Ron?" He says, "You're not getting paid."
Speaking of the cats on this album, Stuart and Luther, you guys all sound like you're in sync. You sound like you've been together for decades playing this music. I got the feeling that there was a comfort level that you all exuded to that audience. Even the way they were clapping, I could hear there was this, like you said, serendipity. It's the word right now. Did you feel like that on stage with these guys and what you were doing?
Um, I was shocked at how well they played
Yeah,
the songs. You know, I mean, my s- I was shocked. I really was. I mean, I wouldn't have made it a recording if it wasn't good,
yeah,
and I couldn't have done that if it wouldn't have been for Mark Winkler, Cathy Segal-Garcia, who's is hip to the Kulak thing,
yeah,
and Paul Kulak, who owns the building and sits in the back at a big board where he controls everything, and so those people helped to make it great. I had a nice conversation and caught up with Luther Hughes, but Luther, if I would have asked Luther who to have on drums, he probably would have said Paul Krybeck because he's played with Paul since way back in the day, and the two of them lock in like beans and cornbread. They got it down, but I really wanted to make a recording, where I do what I used to do when I was a teenager, which
yeah,
is play the drums,
yeah,
all through my 20s and 30s mostly, I played the drums. And when I went to Los Angeles, Mike Melvoin, he said, "No, you can't play the drums. Stand up and sing. I'll
yeah,
get you a drum. I'll get you any drum you want." So I had the great honor of singing in front of, John Guerin and just all these wonderful, wonderful drummers. Lawrence Marble, one of my hero drummers. And so I learned how to sing, standing up, I guess, and not fidgeting around or whatever. I don't know. I had to kind of relearn it, but I also learned from that. But now, as I've gotten older, I'm like, I just want to play the drums. I've
yeah.
even done it with a big band. Play the drums and sing from the drums in a big band, which uh, that's pretty hard because there's a lot of things that are going on in the band, and there's 16 other people who are close enough to throw something at you and hit you. And some of the things they have, like mutes and stuff are pretty heavy, so they get wacky and knock you out.
Yeah.
So there's that. You
Yeah.
know, so yeah.
Well, speaking of live, the last time I caught you was at the revival of the Kansas City Jazz and Blues Fest. You were up there with Bobby Watson, and I hadn't seen you on the drum kit, but every time I catch you live, there's an exuberance. I always feel like what you're saying when you were a teenager. You love being on stage and it shines. How has that feeling maturated over the years of being in this art form? How has that feeling changed from the beginning to now? What's it feel like to get on stage?
It Joe. What's happened is it hasn't changed. It's like an old friend. When I sit down at the drums, it's an old friend. And there's a book that I read about the spirituality of music, and in that book there were a lot of all different kinds of musicians. Classical musicians who would say, yes, we play blah blah, but the planets, and we play all these songs, and we really we feel God in these songs and so on, and we have a big season of Christmas music where we feel God. And the rock musicians said, we were at Stonehenge to 5,000 people, and it was like God was there. And Tony Williams said a little bitty paragraph, and Tony Williams said, "I sit down at the drums, I close my eyes, I say a little prayer, and I go."
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, wow. And I'll continue the story just to tell you the whole story. So I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and this woman comes up and she says, "Oh, you play the drums? "Oh, do you know Tony Williams?" And I said, "No, but I'd like to." She said, "Well, he's in L.A. Here's your number. Here's the number." So she writes down the number, and she said, he's been my guy for a long, long time. You know, blah, 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 blah. Tell him hello for Marilyn or whatever. I can't even remember her name. But anyway, so I'm in New York, in Los Angeles, and Tony Williams is playing at Catalina.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go up, I'm gonna say hello to him, and I thought, no, I'm gonna wait until I hear the first set because I want to see what he does. I want to watch him do it,
Yeah.
you know. And he did exactly that. He got up, he sat down at the drums, picked up his sticks. It was like, wow, like lightning
Yeah.
across the drums, and everybody in the band just fell into where Tony was.
Wow.
And then, like 6 months later, he was gone. You know, he passed away. Not that long after that. But it's like I just learned a real respect for that. You know, and he was with Miles Davis, 17, 18, 19 years old. And from what Ron Carter said, people asked him in this master class, well, how did you play in, My Funny Valentine in Tokyo? And the one you played in Copenhagen was different. He said, look, Miles had 8 tunes. We knew by the way he moved his body or how he tapped his foot or what he was going to, we knew what he was going to do when he started because he never told us what we were going to play. We had 8 tunes, and that's the 8 tunes we played the whole tour. And then the band was gone. You know, we went into something else, you know.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's that improvisational thing, you know. And so that's really, I live by that, you know. Get up on the stage, take everything that's happened to you in the day, and you know, you got to go to get your dry cleaning. You got the wrong shirt on. Is my hair okay? You know, you know, the club owners, you know, and now you get, you know.
Yeah.
All that stuff, you just have to let it go, and then you can actually play music. You can actually have a conversation with the music because everybody's there to talk. You just talk about it, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, musically talk about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and there's an interchange too. So at the end of the day, I know there's streaming. We've talked about Spotify and the economics that don't work out. But if anyone wants to get a physical copy or download this or catch you live, do it in the way that needs to be done the right way. How do they do it?
Catch me live.
Yeah, or pick it up, pick a physical copy up. The best way to get this album that's going to benefit you and do it in the right way. How do they do it?
There's a there's really not. it's there's a there's there's a I'm building a new website because my davidbasse.com, davidbasse.com is dedicated to Jazz with David Basse, my radio show.
Yes.
Down at the bottom of the homepage, scroll way, way down to the bottom of the homepage, and you'll see a thing that says Basse as a player or David as a player or something like that. And you click on it, and it's the Bandcamp page.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you buy it through Bandcamp, through my website, it's probably I probably make the 4 cents more or 10 cents more or something like that. I'm not sure, but a little bit more, you know. But that's one way. Or you could just come to a gig. I mean, at the gig, I'll charge you, $20 for the 10-cent album. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Yep. Makes total sense. So do you have on your website, you have all your shows if anybody wants to check in or social media, or how can they
No,
do that?
no, I don't. Facebook,
Okay.
David Basse Jazz,
Okay.
and I don't play that much.
Yeah.
You know, I try to really make it an occasion when I play.
Yeah.
I played, right now I'm downtown in Kansas City at VOO, KansasCity.com, VOO, KansasCity.com. It's in the old Muehlbach Hotel.
Yeah.
They started doing jazz radio there in 1922.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
So
wonderful place. I dig
I
it.
like the vibe in
Yeah.
there.
It's a cool
And
place.
so and then I go and play. I travel some and I play some. But we'll start traveling more with this particular album. Yeah.
And the warm weather's upon us. I'll put all of these links in the show notes. We ran away with our time. David, thank you, sir. Thank you for taking a minute out. Best of luck on the release. It's great to catch up, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Neon Jazz.